we just walk through the user interface, such as admin UI or the end user UI. They all go through a REST API layer in order to create, read, update, delete, or manage or any of these objects, like system object, configure object, manage the object, or any synchronization or and reconsideration. You can also write your own external client to work with any of these objects in any way, by providing the appropriate privilege and have authenticated the external client or using the correct credential of a authenticated user to do whatever operation you need to do. In this slide, we are going to talk about the managed object. As you saw in the dashboard, there are 3 default managed objects that are created. The first one is a user, role, assignment, and organization. They are the default ones. Managed object is an object that represents an identity-related data item that can be managed by Identity Manager, and they are stored in the Identity Manager data store or repository. If you would like to think of it in that way, all other managed objects are basically stored as a JSON data structure. Let's go back to the environment and show you. Okay, let's go back to the end user portal. So this is the profile tab, and you could download your data in here. Then after you download it, you will see a user profile.json in here. If you open it, you could see a JSON format data is showing. The metadata is using JSON format. You can see what email address is using, and the user preference about the marketing, and you can see the profile data in JSON format. And also we could look into the JSON detail in the Apache Directory Studio. Okay, so now we opened the Apache Directory Studio. That is the IDM repository that we can connect it. Double click on it. So it is a directory server. You have to create the correct directory server directory tree so that it can be used in Identity Manager repository. And we will cover that in our directory server training course, but you can go to the ForgeRock directory server DS documentation, and it explains exactly what you need to do for set up a repository and prepare to be used as an Identity Manager repository. So you could see that it's got a whole bunch of things. One of those things is called OU Manager, and this is just a JSON object, and this information was the information that was downloaded in the JSON file that was shown in here. It is so that is just a quick look under the whole so to speak in the directory server itself. So I was using the Apache Directory Studio browser, and I show you the managed object for how to see a user record in JSON data, and I show you how to use the Postman REST API to read that data, so you can access all that data through the REST API. So in this screen, you can see the default managed object, which I mentioned: user, role, organization, and assignment. If we go back to the admin UIs, then you could see that you could create a new managed object in this session. If we go back to previous page, you could see I also created some new managed object called device. So in this line, we will talk about the system object. System objects are typically referring to objects that are portable representation or objects that communicated with external system. You can manage a system object using RESTful API in the same way as we manage the object. All of the connector that we create in IDM, which are connecting to external system, built according to the ICF framework. ICF stands for Identity Connector Framework. It is a particular SPI or API that you follow that allow you to create connector logic to talk to the external system in a native language, and it makes the data available in a user-friendly way for the environment. So in this slide, we will talk about the configuration object. Configuration objects are different type of object in Identity Manager that represents configuration. They can also be external configured externally like any other system configuration. They also be accessed by the REST API. Configured objects are useful for things like lookup table or other custom configuration things that are needed in the IDM. In this session, we will talk about the mapping an identity object to a managed object. Typically, in an identity-related role, the type of object you will find such as user, group, roles, organization, device, or Internet of Things. We will have a relationship with things to things like group, user, and other things. Identity-related object and mapping them to the default object is available in Identity Manager. And if we look to this slide, okay, so end user was stored in the user managed object in Identity Manager. A role was stored in roles. Currently, Identity Manager does not have groups in them, so we tend to use roles instead of groups in this sharing session. However, in during the training, the tutor told me that the ForgeRock Identity Cloud, the SaaS version, got a groups managed object now. So but it is only recently been introduced in the last month. So he is expecting probably a new release of IDM. I'm not sure it will be part of version 7.2 dot something or it will be 7.3. I haven't seen anything about it. I'm expecting groups will appear in the on-prem version in the not too distant future. Okay, so roles have a role managed object, as we know. Organization got an organization roles. Assignment don't have an external identity related thing. That's something for provisioning of role to external system, and synchronization roles with external system ID of role. However, you can create your custom object. As I showed you earlier in the admin user interface, you can create a new managed object. Give it your own name, readable title, icon, description, and then you can add properties to it to store whatever data you want to check about those type of object. Such as it may be a device that you want to check. So maybe you have got a device that your staff is using. If it is a workspace kind of implementation of identity and you want to check what device you provisioning or giving to those staff member and who owns what device and what they are using, so you can collect them when it is time for that person to move, or if they move or walk from one part of the organization, you may want to keep device that are unique to different part of organization. Another use case could be like a customer focused identity managed system, and you would like a netfest or a company that is keep tracking of device that are registered to stream the service, and it might be what you want to check. So the type of data, your properties you would put in a device object would vary depending on application requirement. Mapping an identity profile to identity management object is a data mapping exercise. So an identity architect need to determine what other objects they want to check and store information about in IDM. So when you look at an external identity object that you would want to check, you want to know what is it that you want to check about them. So what data do you want to keep track of? What are the properties about the object you want to check? Can we map the external identity object we want to check to the existing managed object in IDM that are provided by default? If not, do we need to create a custom object for it? So you want to go through a data mapping exercise to map the data you are trying to track from the real world to how Identity Manager can store it. And if necessary, you can modify, create your own object for it if the existing default object don't suit your requirements. Keep in mind, if you look at the user and all the properties here, if you need additional properties, you can add properties to track data that is not there by default. For example, we have got the subscriber member in here as of a streaming service. Maybe we want to check the subscriber's age, so I can create a property called subscriber's age. You can in my case, because I already created this one, this is a extra properties created for subscriber age. I can define the title, description, as I mentioned before, and I can choose the properties is required or not. So in this case, you could see this is a optional property, and I could make it after I create these properties. If I switch to the view of the user, then we can look into the detail of the new field subscriber age in here. Let's take a look this subscriber age in end user portal. If I log in to the end user portal and edit my profile, you could see you can not find the subscriber age in here. Why? Because in here I click the subscriber age is not allowed to let user to edit. If I turn it on and click save, then I find that I have to log in again. If I log in again and edit the profile, you could see the subscriber age is now showing, and it is saying optional because I didn't click require in here. So that is how the custom properties work. You can just follow your requirement to add extra properties if you want to create, just like the subscriber age we just created. For security perspective, we may want to know how the audit log check with those profile update, because it is in production it is very dangerous if anyone can just log in and update their information. Actually, we will look into the detail in chapter 5, but I can give a very short description about how ForgeRock could keep track for this part. If you click on the configure menu and then you select the system preference, in here you could see the event handler section. It allows us to add different event handling for track the access, activity, synchronization, authentication, and config. And those files is putting into the audit folder. I think you may see this folder before. The log file is here and the audit file is here. If we look into the config file, already open in here, you could see that the latest records is showing at the bottom. So you could see open IDM admin is the user ID I'm now using for the admin UIs, and you could see I did some update operation in this timestamp. So this is a very short description about how the audit log work. So you can actually write all the audit logs and create a event handler to write the audit log that can consume those order, such as you in this drop down you can see it is supporting Splunk server, JMS topic or Q, Elastic searching engine, and so on. You can choose where you write the audit log, and you can hit write to multiple different order page, audit log page. So we will cover this again in more detail in chapter 5. So coming back to map external identity to IDM objects, I have kind of given you an introduction to a few things. It is required to do a data mapping exercise. If you got a sample external identity objects, this is attributes and data type to store that data in some external environment, or whether it would be real world or some other system. The identity manager user managed object has these properties. So what properties here needs to be mapped to what properties here to keep track of that external data. And if you need a custom managed object, what would you map them to, and what would you call your properties to keep track of that data? So it is really a data analyze exercise. Now I am sharing a Google spreadsheet. A common approach is to use a spreadsheet or table to map IDM object to your external identity object. Then map the attributes to the schema of IDM. So in this case, you could see that I put the user managed object in the A column, and in the B column I list out the DS LDAP subscriber, and then you can giving some, for example, if you need some transformation, you could put the remark in here, and so on, and then map the attribute to the schema of the IDM, like this. For example, username map to the UID, password map to the user password, and so on. To help with mapping, there are some questions that should be asked for each object and attribute mapping. For example, here just a few examples to consider. Does this attribute need to be stored in IDM? Does it need to be indexed or not? Which standard property, custom property, or IDM related property should it be mapped to? So it is a data modeling exercise, if you like. I will put this Google spreadsheet link in the description for you guys to download and use it for a reference.